Welcome back, listeners. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on Learning from Friends. It is a pleasure to have you join us back in here on this summer day that's going on. I hope for those people that are parents that have kids out of school are finding some peace and their kids are having a good time. And those kids that are listening, I hope that you are having a blast this summer away from stuff. Remember, when you're coming back into school or if when you come back, be open-minded. Give us teachers some time to kind of catch us back up because as you're coming off a break, we'll be coming off a break too. So, as you all know, as we come in, I always do a quote from my mother. She always sends me in quotes all the time just to kind of boost up my day, and I'm going to share hers with us today. This one relates back heavily with me to the classroom, but also relates to your everyday life with the people you're going to meet. So this one is coming from Robert Fulghum. We could learn a lot from crayons. Some are sharp, some are pretty, some are dull, while others bright. Some have weird names, but they all have learned to live together in the same box. It's a beautiful quote. We all come from different walks of life, and we all kind of go different ways in our world. And at the end of the day, our box is planet Earth. That's the thing with us. You have a community, grow it, and if you have to walk away from somebody someday, that's okay. If they come back to you, that's fine as well. Just find your space. That's the cool thing for it. So today, at the show is my guest, Jeremiah Adkins, aka TheMixGuru. With over 20 plus years as a sound engineer based here in Georgia, having worked in many different genres from pop, gospel, country, hip hop, R&B, he's also a 2012 Grammy winner for his collaboration for Best Gospel Album, Gravity from Lecrae. It is an honor to have him joining us here on the podcast today. Welcome, Jeremiah.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for having me. I know we've been trying to make this happen for a while, so I'm really excited. I love that quote, too, by the way, from your mom. It's a good one. Especially with the way the world is right now. I think not just like the political climate, the social climate, I think the concept of learning to live together despite our differences in the same box, and this box being our country or the world that we're in, I think that's really powerful. Love that.
Yeah, so give us our audience, 90% probably will have no clue who you are here. Give us some insight into who Jeremiah is. Like all of a sudden go, Jeremiah Adkins, Wikipedia page, and I pull it up. What would I find on there? Give me some insights. Give me some cliff notes.
Yeah, so I think 90% is generous. You know, being an engineer, you kind of learn to live in the background. So born and raised in a very, very small town called Logan, West Virginia. That is the southwestern area of West Virginia, if you know the Hatfield and McCoy Trail.
Oh, yeah.
So I was born about 2 miles from the mouth of the Hatfield and McCoy Trail. Whew. That's kind of home. Lived there until I was 10. My father played music and was a really storied and well-accomplished musician, played with a lot of people all over the world. Well, he played with people from all around the world. He didn't go all over the world. Had a studio beside of our house. That's kind of where I was like, music is cool. Moved to Atlanta, which was like the birthplace of my musical journey. Fell in love with just all things sound and really just kind of rode that from, the time I was like 11 until, hopefully the wave don't die soon.
Yeah, you always, one of my earliest memories of you is you always had earphones in, man. Mm-hmm. You always had your earphones in and walk down the hallway. And if someone talked to you, you'd stop, you'd say, hey, how you doing? And if anyone needed an honest opinion, you would always give your honest opinion.
It got me in a little trouble sometimes, still does every now and then, but I just feel like I try to lead with my heart first, but I feel like if you lead with your heart first, then giving people your honest opinion should show people, even though it might hurt sometimes, that you're telling them because you care. You know what I mean? You want to see them grow. You want to see them do better. You want to see them be better. That's how I hope people treat me. So I try to treat people the same way. People ask you a question. You don't know how many times you're going to have the opportunity to interact with those people. So you do the best you can to leave them with something that can help them become a better version of themselves for the future.
That's phenomenal words. As myself as a teacher, I would look for that every single day. Yeah. And that's a guidance in life that we should all sit back and lean on. Doesn't matter who we are. We're all these crayons in this box. Why not be able to add that in? So how do we know each other?
So I think we met in the 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah, I think 8th grade, the
AD
Diamondbacks.
The Diamondbacks for sure. Yep. And that was fun. I remember, gosh, that was a year.
Yeah, it was a transitional year for all of us. We're trying to find ourselves in different ways.
That was a year. And then, we ran in different circles, but I think our interests were sort of, you were in band.
Yeah.
I was big in music. You've always been such a accepting, loving, great guy. In my life at that time, outside of school, things were really, really crazy just at home and that kind of thing. So I always appreciated just kind spirits and good people. So you always were memorable to me, even as I grew. Then we reconnected on Facebook. Social media is obviously a miracle worker. Just kind of kept up with each other from there, I think.
Yeah, you with all your sports knowledge and music knowledge that you're always dropping online. It's always fun seeing the kind of interaction here with it, because you continue. You're always honest. And we have, in high school, we had a mutual friend as well, Z.
Yep, Z.
That connected us back together in high school.
Sure did. And then Tren.
Yep.
Tren was a friend. I hope he's doing good. I haven't heard from Tren in a while.
Yeah, I haven't heard from him in a while either. I'll have to reach out and just kind of see where that's going.
Yeah, but man.
I haven't seen him since college. I saw him a little bit.
Right, yeah. So we went to college together for a little bit at the Art Institute.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then I won a Grammy and thought I was going to be famous and dropped out and was homeless.
Hey, but no, I bet you that was a very big learning point for you, though.
Yeah, man. I think I learned the biggest thing in an entrepreneur's career is to not count things that don't exist in your bank account currently. And so you're 20 years old, you work on a record that sells 30 million records worldwide, and you're going to be famous. You get a check for $5,000, which is at my point in life, that was the most money I'd ever seen in my life. And I was like, school's not important. They're not teaching me anything that I don't already know how to do. I've been making music my whole life. I don't need this. And so I left. And then $5,000 was gone really quickly. And if I moved back home, I would have had to get a job. And I knew I didn't want to get a job. So it was my car. It was friends' couches. It was studio couches. It was staying after sessions and cleaning up and scrounging up enough change in the corners of the couch cushions to get a McChicken.
Yeah.
And that was when McChickens were $1.
Oh, yeah. Now inflation, they're $3?
More than $1.
Yeah.
So feel sorry for all the interns now doing the same thing I did. You eat half the McChicken before you go to bed and wake up and eat the other half so you're not waking up hungry. But it was one of those things where, I think that was struggle by choice, because I made a big mistake and I wasn't going to restart. I was going to see this mistake through to the other side.
And that's what a good entrepreneur does.
Yeah. And I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that moving back home felt like backwards. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And moving forward, at least at the time in my life, felt like progress. I tell my kids, I have a 7-year-old son who will be 8 this month, June, and 6-year-old daughter. I talk to them like adults now.
Okay.
And I tell them, he had a conversation. He's like, Daddy, you dropped out of school, so do I have to go to college? And I was like, yes, absolutely. You have to go to college. You have to finish. Why? And I know the education system, as a teacher, you probably hear people with their opinions on education all the time, right?
I don't agree with everything.
Right.
But there's some good and there's some negative with all situations.
And that's what I tell them. I tell them, I say, the thing is, Miles, yes, I've become a version of whatever you want to define as successful over the time. But at 33, almost 34, I truly feel like I would have gotten further faster had I stayed in school and saw that through and got that degree. But because I didn't, I had to work really, really hard, had to lean on a lot of grace, a lot of favor, had to really trust God. It was a great thing because my faith is strong, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it took a lot for me to get to here. And I just feel like, while I'm very grateful for everything that I've gotten and where I'm at, I do believe that college is designed to be a launch pad. And if you complete it, your trajectory is higher from jump. And so I teach them, even at this age, even though it worked out for me, see it through.
I think that is extremely smart at this age, talking about education and also finances. That's two things missing in school that is not there. I always like to talk to my students saying, look at it as if you can learn at this age, your parents may have made this mistake when they're 40, 30s, 20s. You can maybe learn off them if you understand what they're talking about with that mindset. And you may not get caught in credit card debt. You may not get caught in these student loan debts if you can at least understand how it works. And also with education, if you got to spend a lot of time looking at yourself too before just jumping off. And sometimes I think it's good to have a break or so from high school to college. And as well, it doesn't always have to be, it could be a trade school. It could be a 2-year college, like associate's degree. There's many options out there.
Yeah, man. And I think, not to go on too much of a tangent.
Oh, let's go.
For a second, when we talk about finances and education and stuff like that, it's especially in the Black and brown community, it's really interesting because, and I know that this doesn't hold true for all white households and all white communities. Obviously, the community that we grew up in was not the most financially successful by large community, right? There were some people that were very well off.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of the people we grew up with of all walks of life were, I'd say, in the middle to lower middle class range.
Yeah.
Some in poverty, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I think a smaller percentage were what you would consider modern day successful or wealthy, right? There weren't a lot of people that did very, very well in our community.
That's true.
However, the conversations at home look different around finances in the Black and brown communities versus the white homes. And I think that's really important when we talk about financial education because, like, my mother was the first person in our family to get money, right? My mother, and when I say get money, I mean like earn $17 an hour.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's big money.
Right. Yeah.
At that time, because that's in the 2000s.
Yeah. So, and then my father was the first person in his family, aside from his, brothers, but his generation was the first in our family to get a professional job. Like everybody else was like worked in the mines, worked construction, things like that to where, so my dad was the first person to like put on a tie and go to work.
Okay.
So now granted, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was a tie and going to work. So for us, when you ask those questions, it would stay out of grown folks' business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There was no question.
Calm. You sit back. Yeah.
Yeah. There was no conversation about what credit looked like.
No.
How do you handle credit card debt? Like I remember when I was 18, bro, I got my first credit card. Capital One gave me $1,000 credit limit, and I had a job at Wendy's right there.
Oh,
off
yeah.
Riverstone.
On that little part. I know that is still there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had that job at Wendy's. I don't know why they gave a kid that made $7 an hour $1,000 credit limit.
Because they know they're going to spend it.
Yeah, but that $1,000 was gone that afternoon. And I wasn't sure how it worked. I didn't understand what 23% interest meant to $1,000.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I didn't understand how long it was going to take me to pay it off. I was like, $1,000. I make like $300 a week. I don't really eat a lot. I eat at work. Gas is cheap. Drive a little truck. Like, yeah, I could probably pay this $1,000 off at the end of the month. Not thinking like at that time I spend all of my money every week.
Yeah.
And, so I get the first credit card bill and I'm over the limit. And then so there's fees on that.
Yep.
And there's this on that. And I talked to my parents about it and they're like, well, you got to handle that. You can't let your credit card debt go such and such. And I was like, how? They're like,
how do
you just
I know?
got to pay it. Yeah. I'm like, what does that mean? Right.
And that could lead to very dangerous things for a lot of people, what they're going to do.
Right. It's not my parents' fault by any means. Right. Like I'm not blaming them. What I'm saying is in our community, like we don't have a lot of financial education. I think the wealth gap from the 70s in a Black and brown household to now, if I remember correctly, is less than half.
Oh, wow.
So Black families are worth half as much now as a whole countrywide than they were 30 years ago.
Wow.
Right? Lack of education.
Yes.
That's really the answer.
Yeah, like to access last the people speaking to him on it. Yep. That's and I going back to education, I feel like in middle school we should start introducing that into classrooms, and it should be a year-long class, not just a elective for 6 months or 3 weeks kind of deal. It needs to be something that's. And I got ahead the last week of school. We had financial literacy there, but I'm like, I want to go deeper than what's out there. I want to say, hey, you have options for stocks. You can open up a custodial account for your kids. You need to be able to understand, hey, looking at what a credit card means, as you said, of what 23% means. And I was like, hey, that's take $100 and that's due 23% of that. That's right there. You're looking at off the bat, $23 you're having to pay back at that. Now you're at $123 and that compounds up and it's not there.
I think the reason why I was saying what I was saying is because when we understand the lack of education,
Yes.
especially in our communities, when you understand the lack of education, you then say, well, what's the best way to give everybody an even playing field? Well, they all have to go to school together.
Yep, they all do.
Right. So if the school system that we're paying into
Yep.
can say, hey, we're going to teach people how to do this. Now you have kids from all different households
Oh, yeah.
coming into one place, learning the same way to handle their finances, learning from the same median. In that case, I know people argue about how people teach this or that, or I'm not talking about that. But from a financial perspective, there's no real gray area when it comes to teaching people how to save money.
True.
And how to pay bills.
Yep.
And understanding how to keep from being paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
At my life, I'm fortunate enough now to know a few millionaires and a few people that are worth a lot of money. And the millionaires that I know, for the most part, are still paycheck to paycheck. Guys that I know that are worth a lot of money, two things they say. One, first step to having more money or feeling like you have a raise on your job is to pay off all your credit card debt.
Indeed.
If you don't have credit card debt, then you're going to have more money. And number two is to find a way to not live paycheck to paycheck.
Indeed.
Period. If that means you don't eat out for a year to stack up money, if that means that you don't take that vacation, if that means that you don't buy that new car, if that means that you get used to telling friends to just come over to the house rather than you go out with them, whatever that means, find a way to not spend money and not be paycheck to paycheck. And that's how you'll accumulate your wealth.
That's a very true statement. It combines up over time. And a lot of people think that that can be, it's not suffering by any means by not going on that vacation. You could still go on a vacation, just make it more locally. Hey, I wanted to go to the beach down in, say, Florida. Okay, that's go to Lake Lanier or somewhere nearby. You're still getting to go.
You're still having a good time.
Exactly. And if you like, oh, I want to go stay in a hotel for 3 or 4 days down there while I'm at it. Okay, if you want to get an Airbnb in Blue Ridge for cheaper, be able to do that and still get out.
Cook all your meals at the Airbnb.
Exactly.
Right. So it's funny. I know there's nothing to do with what we were talking about.
Oh, no, that's okay, man. This is an open.
Mother's Day this year, my wife and I went with the kids to Myrtle Beach. And it was kind of a spur of the moment trip, but we had the weekend off, so we decided we'd go. And we go, and the plan was, okay, so what we're going to do is, and we could have done it however we wanted to. We're very fortunate to be able to do that now. But we said this wasn't a planned trip.
Okay.
So we're not going to break the bank. Right.
Smart.
We're not going to blow all such and such. We're going to be wise. So we found an Airbnb, which wasn't of the luxury that I'm used to at this point. That's what I'll say. Okay. Right. It was very much like it was the Motel 6 of Airbnbs.
Yeah. I've stayed in some pretty scary ones at times.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So, but I had a kitchen and you could see the beach.
That's a win.
And so what we said was we were going to spend the weekend on the beach with the kids. So we cooked our meals. We went out one time, and everything else was we cooked our meals. We ate everything at the house. We brought snacks to the beach. And our main activity every day was hours on the beach.
Yeah.
So we got home having spent way less on any vacation than we'd ever spent.
I can believe that.
And we created so many memories. We played board games. We did our first, as a family, 500-piece jigsaw puzzle. Realized as a family that we're not ready for jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah, that takes a commitment.
Yeah, with a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old, they're like 3 pieces in and they want to go run around the
ADD kicks in.
Yeah, it's like we're not with it. So we saw it through, but it was the memories we created and the price it cost us to create the memories was so affordable.
That's priceless.
Yeah, and so we learned this was May, right? So we learned in May what it looks like to vacation differently. And how much more fun that is. Yeah. It's
surprising that you just got to think sometimes outside the box. Not everything is a cookie cutter, have to follow A, B, and C. And just because you're seeing someone over there do this fancy trip and spending $1,000, you don't know what's happening behind those closed doors.
Right.
You never can tell. It's like the Millionaire Next Door book. I don't know if you've read that one.
I've heard excerpts from it.
Yeah, I love it. It's just you may see that guy driving the Lexus, but he may be living paycheck to paycheck, and he may be leasing that car and spending more. It's just the look at times. Anything behind closed doors can be different.
I had an embarrassing conversation years ago with a friend who owned a home. We were in our 20s, and he owned a home and was trying to make it happen in music just like I was. And me, again, how my honesty has kind of gotten me in trouble sometimes was one of these moments. I was talking to him and I was, making jokes about how he owns a house already and, oh, you made it, and And finally, after, a couple of months of us hanging out and me making little jokes like, oh, Mr. Moneybags over here, he got all the money. Oh, you can't tell me, bro, you got 5,000 square foot house, so all that type of stuff. And he finally told me, he's like, hey, man, you know what I had to give up to get this house? I said, man. What? He said, I lost my mother.
Oh, my gosh.
He said, and so this house was paid for in cash from the money that she left us in our inheritance.
Oh, wow, yeah.
From her life insurance. Not from her stocks and all this type of deal. She had a good life insurance policy on her job, and she passed. So when you talk about this big house, I remember that my mother sacrificed for me to have it. Yeah. So I'm struggling just like you. My mother put me in this position.
And any day of the week, he would give it all back to have his mom back.
That's exactly what he said. He said, and to be honest, I would go back to our trailer to have another day with my mom. And I was like, I feel really dumb. And not just I feel really dumb, but perspective on that, right? Is, like you said, you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. You don't know how they struggled. You don't know whose parents helped them. You don't know what they gave up to get what they have, or what they lost in order to get what they have, or how that you don't know how that shaped out.
Yeah, it's hard to pick up any of that information, and that's one thing that it's not necessary. It's at times to be able to throw that out there because that's their personal life as well. But we have to take that into consideration that we can never assume something. Right. You can't judge someone by the way they look, because if you judge me by the way I look in 8th grade, I wore a little trench coat and had hair down to my shoulders and stuff like that, and people thought all the time that I sold drugs. I never touched the stuff, never have, never will, but it's assumptions that people make. And as your friend, whenever you just assumed that of just the presence of what he had in his house and when he had him around, and that we don't know. And the moment we open up our mouth, sometimes we put our foot in our mouth.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I have a big foot, so it was, I have years of experience in fitting a size 14 in my mouth. So I do that less nowadays.
We learn from the past and we go to the future, and hopefully we can pass that knowledge down to our children and those around us, that if they repeat our mistakes, they know how to at least adjust.
And correct them quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's the key thing when it comes to that in life. I'm glad we got to go down that path. That's really cool to be able to discuss that. That's really cool. Let's dive into, you gave me a little bit of information about starting into your career. What are some misconceptions that a lot of people have? Because you gave us the thing saying that you were like, you made the album, you got in, you're like, I'm going to be, this big, huge guy, made $5,000 on this, and then everything went downhill. But what are some misconceptions that you noticed from that? Yeah,
so I think there's two ways to attack this. So one is the person not in the music industry that doesn't aspire to be in it, that just knows, oh, you do sound. So we'll start there. The biggest misconception is it is not an engineer's job to burn you a CD of a bunch of your favorite music.
Okay.
And that is always the common thing, right? Is I have a song that I want to play at this thing that I'm doing. It used to be, can you put that on a CD for me? It's like, oh gosh, no, that's not my job. But now how do I get it off of iTunes so that I can play it at my granddaughter's recital? Plug your phone in to whatever they have there. Like, there's going to be somebody there that knows how to do that for you. Like, you don't have to come to me to ask me to do that. It's a huge misconception, is that music burning people and that we just copy CDs all the time.
Napster 2.0, come on.
Yeah, man. Napster, that's what we are, right? They think we're Napster. And then the other side of that is they think that all sound people are the same. So by trade, I'm a mixing engineer, right? Okay. That means that the records are recorded. An artist comes to a studio, records their vocals into a program or to tape, or onto Pro Tools or whatever they want to do, a computer-based software that they record everything into. They have all their backgrounds, their harmonies, all the things that make it sound good. They record it all in, and then they send that to me. Then my job is to take out all the artifacts, the gremlins, the things that don't sound so good, the high-pitched frequencies. It sounds, too woo. It's my job to clean all that type of stuff up and make it all sound good. That's my job, right?
Yeah.
My job is not to figure out how to get your DVD player to work with your TV.
Tech support.
Right. I don't know anything about your computer. When my computer goes down, I call somebody.
Yeah.
Right? You can't call me over and ask me how to install the Adobe Creative Suite on your computer. I don't know how.
Well, I will take that off my list in my phone.
Yeah. So I think they assume that engineer means we're technical, right? Officially speaking, I have a GED and a year and a half of college experience. I'm not technical.
Okay.
I have good ears and I know how to make stuff sound good.
Yeah, you do.
So
Holy moly, it does sound
thank
good.
you. But that's my job, right? Every week, a cousin, an auntie, a mother-in-law, she won't hear this hopefully because she doesn't have that technology. So she won't beat me up at the next get together. A mother-in-law or a father-in-law. My father-in-law one day, he calls me over. He's like, I got this new satellite radio thing. Can you put it in my car? I was like, no, I don't know how to do that. He thought I was being difficult with him. I was like, no, like honestly, like there are car install people whose job is to install sound systems in cars. That's a job, right? Like that's a thing. I don't know how to do that. Like you want me to rip your car apart and put something else in place of it? I've never soldered a cable before in my life. I don't know how to do that.
You'd be like, hey, I'll do it, but it may not come out right.
Yeah, your car might blow up. Like I put your car in, I put your radio in, but your air conditioning stops working. If that's a fair trade, then let's do it.
Let's go.
Or I put your radio in, but your brakes go out. Yeah. You got a good radio though.
Yeah, it works. It works.
And then I think the other side of that is speaking to people that want to be in the music industry and want to be in this position as mine. It is a thankless job. You think you're in the music industry and you're going to be famous and you make a lot of money and, I'm going to go to the Art Institute or I'm going to go to SAE or I'm going to go learn how to be this music technology person or recording engineer. And then you're going to graduate college and you're going to go to work at Guitar Center. You're going to make $10 an hour plus commission. That's where you're going to start. And then you're going to get an internship at a studio working for free on all of the waking hours that you have left in your day that you're not paying your bills. And you're going to do that for 2 years. And then somebody is going to get sick one day. And they're going to ask you to run that session because they're sick and the studio doesn't need to lose the money. Then you're going to take that opportunity. And then they're going to give you another opportunity. And all of these are unpaid, by the way. And then 3 months later, they're going to start giving you $10 an hour. By now, it might be $15. And you're going to be 5 years in before you're making $25 or $30 an hour. But it costs you $100,000 to get that degree.
It's true. It takes a lot to pay that off. College debt's a lot.
Yeah. I think the misconception is that we get in the music industry and a year in, we're 40 to Drake. Or we're Billy Hume to Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. Or something like that. And it's like all of a sudden we're this world famous Dr. Dre and we're not.
Yeah.
But if you stick with it because it's something that you love, you could become a Jeremiah. You could become a guy who worked really hard, who pays his bills with music, who has a little money saved up, who's building a life for his family, who has 2 decent cars, who has a house with a nice little backyard, and puts his kids in a decent school system and can take a vacation or 2 a year, hopefully 3 or 4 now that we learned how to do it cheaper.
There you go.
But you could end up becoming the modern American dream in paying your bills, doing something that doesn't always feel like a job. But most of the time, we walk into this thinking we're going to be world famous. And as an engineer, it's just not true.
And I bet that is your story as well in the background of how you had to go through very much those stories to get there.
Yeah, man. And I have friends that went through worse. I had a friend who graduated top of his class at the Art Institute when I was there, and he interned at a really famous studio in Atlanta. He got the job that everybody wanted coming out of college. And a year in, he goes to the owner of the studio, who is now a friend of mine. He says, hey, man, so I've been here a year. And he's like, oh, let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
He's like, if you're looking for a job, we don't got one for you.
Oh, man.
Been there for a year. He's like, okay. He's like, you can keep going. And then if something happens, we'll let you know. A year later, goes back to him and says, hey, man. He's like,
still no.
Don't got nothing for you. 4 times he did this before he said, I'm just going to have to go do it on my own.
And that was 4 years that he had?
4 years interning at the same place, asking the same question. And the crazy thing is, the 4th time he asked, the owner said, you're ready to go do this on your own.
That's a compliment. That's a huge compliment.
You need to just go figure this out. And he's like, I guess I'm going to have to go figure this out. Because he was prepared to keep going. He was prepared to stay there until the guy gave him a job. But in these studios, man, once you get in, you could be the same guy that works at the same studio. At that time, and not so much now, but at that time, 2010, 2011, they had guys that have been in those studios for 10, 15 years.
I can believe that.
And it's the people, you know what I'm saying? Those are the people that are paying the studio owners' bills. Those are the people who the artists are flying around the world to come see. If I want, it used to be there's a studio called Southern Tracks. It was like, if I wanted Carl Hilbrun to work on my record, it's everything from early 90s records, like Pearl Jam type stuff, all the way to now. He's on tour with an artist that I grew up with that was a friend of mine as a child named Jacob Bryant from Jasper.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he's on tour with him now, and Jacob's about to take off. So he's been
that's so cool,
prominent for the last 30 years. This guy's an engineer. Well, there was a time where if you wanted him, you had to go to Southern Tracks. That was the only place you could go to get him. So if I'm an intern coming out of college, I'm not getting Carl's job.
No, not especially
right?
He's made himself in there and he's staying put.
Yeah, I'm not getting Carl's job. Like he's making them $100,000 plus a year. I'm not getting Carl's job.
No.
And in Atlanta especially, there were 50 people like that. And so I think the idea that unless you're prepared to be an entrepreneur and figure this out, you're not going to make the money that you want to make.
And that's amazing words to hear, that a lot of people need to hear that, because they expect, as you said, they expect us to walk right into it. And it's not easy. Mm-hmm. It never is. Because I've been doing auctioneering for 7 years now, and I keep it back, and it's a secondary thing for me. It's fun, but it took a lot of time to be able to even get my name to any level where it's at right now. And you look at, I'm going to make a side reference of similar with the cattle industry. You have a cattle auctioneer that he may be in his 80s. He's been doing that job since he was 30, 20, 15 years old. And until he passes away, or he needs a break, you ain't stepping in. Yeah. You ain't stepping in. You ain't stepping in here. So at what age did you kind of see this? You said mention your father kind of was always having music there. That's
funny. So my dad had built a studio beside of our trailer. He had like these old 4416 reel-to-reels and a 16x8 Mackie analog console. Everything was tape and ADATs. And I was the only person that he could yell at to push record when he needed to cut scratch tracks for clients.
Oh, wow.
So 5-6 years old, I'm sitting in the studio on a stool that he had raised up high enough for me to be able to see the buttons. And he's like, now, son, when you go in here, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do this and I'm going to tell you, all right. And when I say all right, tip that button right there. Don't you tip nothing else. That's how he would talk to me. Don't you tip nothing else. So, okay. Well, as soon as you walk in there, I'm like seeing all these knobs and faders. And
what the buttons?
Now, mind you, this is analog, right? So there's no recall.
Oh,
right?
No. Yeah,
when you move something, it's gone. And I'm 5. So I'm just like, Christmas tree, turn the knob, make everything go to the left, or move this to the right. Or what would it look like if this was left and that was right, and this was left and that was right, and alternate everything. And so in the 3 minutes it took him to get his guitar tuned and set up in the booth, I've changed his entire mix, not knowing that I just wasted 3.5 days of his life.
Oh.
So then he's yelling and screaming. He's like, it don't sound good. What's going on? And then he's trying to tell me, okay, now you see the third fader from the left. What's a fader? The little square that moves up and down. Okay. Where's that at? 0. 0 or the bottom? The bottom. How to get to the bottom? Oh.
Yeah, the good response.
Yeah,
oh, no.
I moved it.
Yeah.
So, 5 years old doing that. And then I think at some point he realized that I was going to move these faders and I was going to turn these knobs and I was going to push these buttons. So maybe teach me what they do.
Ooh, okay.
And so he would just casually see when I do this, you hear how that does that. See when I move this, you hear how that does that. And I'm like, yeah, well, I didn't know at the time, but that's ear training, right?
Entirely.
So at 5, 6, 7 years old, I'm just, learning and listening. Well, by the time I was 8, I could record whatever he wanted to record while he was in the booth and I was in the control room. And I use those terms loosely. It was a big, Home Depot style shed.
Okay.
With a partitioned wall and a mirror and a window in between.
Hey, it works. Right? It works.
And so I don't want people to think that I was in this $1 million control room at 8 years old. No, it was very much my dad bought a bunch of gear and put it in a shed and put a window in between it, and kind of split it down the middle. So he's yelling at me to do this, to do that, and I'm able to do what he says to do at 8 years old.
Wow.
And then from there just came the knowledge of dubbing over ADAT, splicing tape.
That one is a whole mess, splicing up tape.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is insane.
I could, if I had to, sit down on a Studer 2-inch reel-to-reel right now and record a session to 2-inch tape.
And there's not many people left that can really do that.
Especially not
at your age.
Especially not at 33.
Yeah.
So, and that comes from being a kid and my dad, yelling at me to push this, push that. So he didn't have to run, back and forth. And I think from there, moving to Atlanta and learning what music that spoke to your soul sounded like.
Tons of music here in Atlanta.
I mean, Outkast, really for me, I don't want to get lost in the naming the artist world because that wasn't me. For me, it was the producers. The Dallas Austins, the Organized Noise, Rico Wades, Babyface, L.A. Reid, like the way they heard music, even into the early 2000s, Brian Michael Cox, the Corner Boys, the way they heard music, the way they manipulated sound to tell stories, their drops, their 808s, the things that they did to invoke emotion and take you on the journey that the lyrics were telling you.
Okay.
Was like, oh, this is life. This is life. And I grew
they're
up
doing their job.
Yeah, man. And I grew up on country music and Southern gospel and bluegrass. And I just thought everything was percussive and tinny and twangy. And then I come to Atlanta and I'm like,
mind blown.
Harmonies are great. Like, what is this Boys to Men and where can I have more of it?
A door opened up.
Yeah. And so it changed my life. And then because I had such a background in country, I was able to understand the similarities of the two, right? R&B and country are really the same. It just sounds different. They're both telling stories. They're both sharing their experiences based on the life they lived.
Yes.
It's mostly love or nostalgia based, and the music around it just sounds different. That helped me as an engineer connect with a broader audience of people, which got me opportunities at a younger age than people in my community would get. So most people when I was a kid were rap engineers. Well, I could sit down with anybody and record them because when you live in West Virginia, you're only recording with singers. You're only hearing singers. Rap is not a thing in 93 in West Virginia, right? Like in 1996 in West Virginia, there's no rap. Like
it's true.
That's just what it is. So I moved down here and it's like singing. Yeah, I love singing. So as I got older, I started to realize that there was a job for this. I was good at it. I could potentially make something doing it. And I was good at something that a lot of people who were already getting paid to do it weren't, which was dealing with people and helping them make sure that their singing voice sounded good. So that's just kind of where I journeyed to. And so, yeah, I mean, that's really kind of how I got into it, was just my dad pushing, and he needed to get stuff done. I didn't know it at the time, but people were paying him to do this stuff. So he had deadlines, right?
Yeah.
Put down the Nintendo, come out here and help me with this.
And think about what that changed your life there.
Yeah.
Who knows the trajectory where that would have done. In family, that's an important factor. And for you now, having kids, family yourself, how do you make that balance for you between work life and home life?
Well, I mean, we're in my studio right now in my basement.
It's a great studio.
I appreciate it. But so that's how. For me, right? I think when we first got married, we had a 5-year plan. And on our 1-month anniversary, we found out we were 3 weeks pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And we cried. Not tears of joy. Please, people, don't judge me or hate me for not being happy that we found out we got pregnant. We were young and we had a 5-year plan. And it lasted 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we find out that we're pregnant and I immediately say, oh, I have to get a job. And so I try to find jobs. I'm looking for jobs, and I'm realizing that even as inconsistent as my money was, getting a job was still a significant step back from where I was. So my wife and I put everything we had, and her father gave us $1,500, and a good friend of mine invested $1,200, and my stepdad at the time took a vacation week from work so that way he wasn't losing money to come and help us build 900 square foot studio.
Oh, wow.
And we just had my son, and we opened this studio. Miles was 11 weeks old in the studio with me every single day while my wife went to work, and I was the starving musician trying to make it happen.
And that's a blessing that your wife gave you, that trust and that joy.
And we were miserable. Our marriage was not good at the time. We weren't arguing or fighting. It was just, she wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. I wasn't the husband that I needed to be or that I thought I was going to be. she wasn't in the deal she thought she signed up for. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and rightfully so.
happens.
And, to be transparent, man, there was a time where we had decided, we sat in her mom's Malibu at the time, because her mom got a new car and gave us her Malibu because we only had one car. We sat in her mom's Malibu outside of that studio in tears, not arguing, just miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, we should just get a divorce. We have one kid. We'd only been married a little over a year. And I don't think anybody knows this. So this is just good storytelling right here. But we've been married a little over a year, and we just knew it wasn't going to work. And we loved each other.
Yeah.
But we didn't love this, right? And we knew that our son was awesome, and he was going to be awesome.
Yes.
And it would have just been cooler for us to just co-parent and still love each other. Because if we didn't, this was our fear. If we didn't make this decision now, we would hate each other later, still get divorced, and then our child be in the middle of this miserable relationship with his two parents. And then the co-parenting situation would have been tragic. My mother's been married 4 times. My father's been married 7 times. Her parents have been married for 40 years.
Wow. Still, yeah, that's a
They've been married
number.
for 40 years. They're 65. They've been married for 40 years. So they've been with each other longer than they were not with each other. And we said we were going to get a divorce. We cried. We hugged it out. I mean, we bawled until we had nothing left in our bodies to cry. I got out of the car. I went into the session. She went home and took care of my son. And I got home that night, and we never talked about it again.
Oh, wow.
And we just committed, both of us internally committed to whatever this journey looked like. We were going to be there for each other.
This is it.
We were going to communicate through it. We were going to figure it out. And 4 studio builds later, we found the right one. I'm going into 4 years on the one space. We bought a house last year. Our home buying journey was longer than we thought it would be because of this venture. But when we bought this house, we were fortunate enough to be able to build a studio in the basement. So that way, when I have to work, I take the long drive downstairs. And when I'm done, I walk right back upstairs. When we have a lot going on for the family, I can hang out and be around, and we can do. And then when the kids go to bed, I can come downstairs and do what I need to do, then go back upstairs and still have some energy to hang out with her.
See, that's amazing.
So that's how we balanced it. I know it's not the right now answer for some people that may want to know, how do you balance that when they're in the middle of the struggle? The right now answer is communication and sacrifice. And
then that is what's happening right now. And you committed to this, and that is a answer.
Yep.
That's a beautiful answer.
So you sacrifice as a husband. I know in today's world, people hate to create roles for, the different genders in the relationship, but I'm a firm believer that the reality is when you sign up to marry this woman, you are signing up to provide her peace and security regardless. And part of providing her peace and security is communication.
Yes.
And financial stability.
Yes.
And if you can't provide those, then she's going to become concerned, and she's going to become scared, and she might lash out, and the arguments may come, or you may start to feel insecure because you're not able to do, and you see what she's fighting through to keep from being upset with you because she knows you're trying or whatever. So the opening your mouth and having the conversation, to me, is how we were able to balance and fight through and still maintain a great relationship with each other and with our children while growing in this journey.
That's amazing to hear that, because a lot of people, unfortunately, it may have not gone the same way for them. And you're being a great model for your children in your community as well when you're doing that.
Well, I try.
You're doing a phenomenal job for it. It definitely shows. You have a very loving family. You really do. Now, you mentioned 4 different studios. Do you currently still have the one in Sandy Springs?
Yep, I own that one. So that was the last build. So I built a studio in Scottdale, Georgia, right outside of Decatur. Lasted 9 months, and then it got robbed. I had an opportunity to build a room inside of a studio in the Bluff of Atlanta. If anybody knows where that's at, it's right by the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. If you ever have an opportunity to go through the Bluff, lock your doors and drive really fast. Don't stop at the stop signs. It's dangerous.
Okay.
Built a studio there. Was there for 2 months, and then the owner lost the building. We didn't know that he was behind on rent when we built the room.
Oh, man.
Then a studio downtown had a 86 square foot room that they were renting out for twice what they should have, but I didn't have a choice. So I rented that room for a year and a half. What's that, 3?
Yeah.
Yep. So 4, 5 studios. So 4, buddy from college reaches out to us through a studio builder friend of ours and says, hey, I've got this extra room that's empty. I'd love to build it and put a room in there. But to be honest, I need somebody that can run my studio and help me.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So I left. They built a $40,000 studio, just all acoustics, not gear or anything, just $40,000 room. And I was there for a year. And then big brother, mentor, best friend I've ever had in music, named Street Symphony. He's the guy that put me in touch with the Lecrae project. He was the A&R for the Lecrae project. And they said, I reached out to him, talked to him about the opportunity to open a studio in a year was the conversation. He was like, yeah, can you put together a business plan? And, I'll look at it. I said, okay, cool. Well, he didn't think I was going to. I sent him a business plan that night. He didn't know I'd had it for years, right? Like
you were ready.
I'd been refining this idea that I had for years.
And that's a true entrepreneur.
Yeah. So, and then I sent it to him and he calls me on New Year's Day. My wife had kind of found a space. He calls me on New Year's Day, which was 2 weeks later. And he says, how quickly can we lease that space?
Okay.
I said, well, I could probably call the guy today and set something up for this week. He's like, tell him we want it tomorrow. Let's see what he says.
Woo.
So January 5th, 2019, we signed a lease on our studio. He had the initial 10 grand to get us started. Anytime you build something, it costs you 50% more what you thought it would be.
That's very true.
$16,000 later, I had to figure out the extra $6,000, credit cards, wife, found a way.
Yeah. If you want to make your dream work, you will find a way.
And because that had been the idea stewing in my brain and in my heart for years, we were profitable from the original investment in 10 months.
Wow. That's more than any entrepreneur. They usually say you're going to be in the red for at least 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
10 months.
10 months. And then the pandemic hits.
That changed everything for everybody.
So we were empty for a month. The month of April, I called my landlord and I said, hey, so I'm about to pay you rent and I have nothing else. Like after I pay you, I'll have $14 in my business account.
Oh, wow.
And we have nothing on the books and we don't know what's going to happen. And she's like, good news. I don't either.
Okay.
So
okay.
We're all going to be in this one together.
That's a good thing that she was willing.
Yeah. She's like, I don't have it. I don't know it. She said, but the blessing is I've owned that building for 40 years. There's no mortgage on that building. So let's just communicate. Let's talk every week. Let's see what happens.
That's a rarity in a landlord.
May 1st opened and the floodgates opened. I mean, I guess they printed up all that money for everybody and everybody decided they wanted to work on their album. And we got busy and we stayed busy.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're in our 4th year now. We just did a remodel and that's where we're going to be until I decide to not have a studio anymore.
Wow.
Because I love it. It's a smaller place, but it's affordable. We've got a model going. We're just outside of the city. There's no traffic. People can come and just kind of be to themselves and take off the face of being an artist and work on their talent and work on their craft.
And that goes a long way for any musician, just needing that break.
Yeah.
That pause.
So it's a lot of fun.
So like whenever you're picking up an artist that's saying, hey, you may have like 20, 30, 40 artists come into you. Mm-hmm. How are you going to choose between that to take them on as a client?
Yeah. So nobody that we work with is able to just call us and book a session. They have to call us and come by, talk to us, listen to their music. We listen to what they have. They listen to what we have. And we make sure that what we want to do is a fit. And that's regardless of the budget. That's if they've got $50 an hour, if they've got $30,000 for their project, like regardless of who they are, we spend an hour or two with them, getting to know them, making sure that they're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for them. There's nothing really that we look for, man. It's just not to sound too mystical, but like that feeling.
The it factor.
Not even the it factor. It's just the notion that I can help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more about where are they and can I help them get to somewhere other than where they are? And if I don't think I'm built for that, right?
Yeah.
If they're better than what I could take them to, if they're different than what I think I could help them to, if they're not ready for me to step in and help them, I'm not going to take their money.
And that's a rarity for some people. That's a beautiful thing
in
that
our
you give.
Industry,
that's respected.
Yeah, in our industry, that's difficult. It's kind of like if you remodel basements and somebody calls you to remodel the house, and you go and look at the house and you realize that remodeling the house is needing a new roof.
Oh, yeah.
You say, well, I remodel basements. Could I remodel that roof? Yeah, I mean, it's nails and hammers and wood. You know. But am I a roofer? I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I can fix your roof when I'm not a roofer. I'm a basement guy. So we spend time with people. We get to know them and their music to make sure we can do it.
That's smart. Now, who are some artists that you've worked with over the years?
Oh, man. So I worked with Taylor Swift. I worked with Jason Derulo, Jay Sean, transitioned into Christian hip hop, worked with Lecrae, Tadashi, Sho Baraka, Derek Minor. In the midst of all that, did the Atlanta trap circuit, the Wakas, the Gucci's, Rocco. I did his whole Gift to Gab project. That was fun. A lot of long nights with that one. And then Kiki Wyatt, my favorite singer of all time, that I didn't know who she was until I heard her sing when we were in the studio together. And I would argue anybody down that she's the greatest female vocalist of all time.
Oh, wow.
The people that I love working with, that I enjoy working with the most, are none of those people, even though I love some of those people. My brother, Amori Jones, hands down top 3 people for me to work with of all time. Like, we get together, we write songs top to bottom, 15, 20 minutes from the time we pull up a beat till the song's ready to send to iTunes. Melvin E. Jackson, she's from South Carolina. We have a blast. She's like my little sister at this point. Yeah, she hates me and I hate her, but we make great music.
That's the best way. That's a relationship.
Yeah.
That's a sister relationship right there.
Yep. She gets on my nerves the same way my little sister, my actual little sister does. And she'd probably say the same thing about me.
That means you're honest with each other.
Yeah,
that's the attitude of being a family
we push
member.
each other. Producers and engineers that I love to collaborate with. You know, first is my buddy X. We met 4 years ago and we just kind of clicked. Like, we've known each other for almost 4 years now. His son is a year younger than my daughter. They're basically best friends. They hang out all the time.
That makes it easy too, right there, you know?
Yeah, we do life together. We don't like each other sometimes. We love each other sometimes. But his music is great. And I think ultimately, all of these people that I love to work with, the thing we have in common is when they're thinking it, I'm already doing it. When I'm thinking it, they're already doing it. So when we step into the room together, we literally become an extension of each other.
It makes it so much easier.
And that just kind of, to me, that just kind of tells you that it's supposed to be, right? There's people that you know in life that you can look at them and you automatically know what they're saying. You can have a whole conversation with somebody based on facial expressions.
That's true.
You translate that into the studio. I can tap X on the shoulder and he already knows.
What's coming next. Okay.
Amori can mumble a melody and I already know the words he was trying to say. We can start recording harmonies with Melvin and know exactly where she's going before she gets there. My big brother Pierre, same thing. He was one of the corner boys back in the day. So people listening can look this up. Pierre Medor of the Corner Boys. If you listen to R&B in the 2000s, you heard Pierre Medor of the Corner Boys. If you know Rico Love, if you ever heard Turn the Lights On a song, Sweet Dreams, Beautiful Nightmare that Beyonce did when at the beginning of the song, she goes, turn the lights on. That's a Rico Love record. You know Rico Love because of Pierre Medor.
Wow.
He's my mentor, big brother. Over the last 2 years that we've known each other, has become one of my best friends. When we sit down and work, we can work for 6-7 hours straight and not say a word and know what each other's saying. So yeah, that for me, it's more about, we can go resumes and plaques and all that type of stuff. But the coolest stuff is the people that you work with, that it just feels good.
And the relationships you build out of that. And that goes a long way whenever someone's speaking your graces to someone else along that way. And that it helps you feel good as a person, as well as know that you've helped that individual too enough that they want to speak kindly of you going forward.
Yep.
Now I want to go backwards just a little bit. The Grammy album that you were a collaborator on with Lecrae that you won, he was literally the first hip hop artist to win that genre there.
Sure was.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because you said that was kind of like, this is where I'm stepping off and becoming the guy, but it's also that humbling moment for you as well.
Yeah. So that humbling moment was Taylor Swift. So in 2008, 2010 area, we did the Fearless album with her and it won 4 Grammys. I thought I was going to be famous. That didn't happen. Working into the Lecrae thing, I had met Street Symphony, who was the A&R for Reach Records, and Reach Records is Lecrae's label. I met him when I was doing the stuff with Rocco.
Okay.
He had just finished Rebel or Rehab. It was Lecrae's first Grammy-nominated album. He produced on that, then became an A&R for the label. They were working on the Church Clothes mixtape. Didn't have the budget, didn't want to spend the money getting it professionally mixed and all this stuff. So I'm at his house one day. He calls me to come over to his house. He doesn't know this, but I had no money and no gas.
Oh, wow.
And he said 5 minutes away from me. So I was like, I can make it 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like 7 miles. It wasn't 5 minutes. When you have no gas, Cade, 7 miles is scary.
That's
right?
a century away.
So I had enough to get there, didn't have enough to get home. But I got there. Sitting in his basement, hanging out with him. I was editing beats for him is what he wanted me to do. And one of the records that I was editing was a song called Cold World that featured Tasha Couture on the Church Clothes album with Lecrae, or Church Clothes mixtape with Lecrae. And he's like, why don't you just go ahead and clean it up so we can send it to him so he could know how it feels. So I cleaned it up and really was like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm not going to be able to get home. Like, this is going to be so embarrassing. I'm going to have to ask him for gas money. And we were friends, but we weren't close at that time like that. You know what I mean? Like,
you don't ask your friends for money unless
I wasn't. Well, we weren't even to the point where I could have said, "Hey, man, I'm short." When he called me, I couldn't have said, "Yeah, but I don't have the gas money." Like, it was like we weren't close yet. You know?
Gotcha.
So he was really giving me a chance, and so I was like, I'm here. I'm just gonna put everything that I'm feeling right now into making this sound the best I can, and I did. He sent it to Lecrae. And Lecrae calls him immediately and says, can that guy come in this week and do the rest of the project?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, my God. Yeah. Their studio's downtown. How am I going to get there?
Yeah,
like
that compares to 7 miles to you're looking at like 20, 30 miles, you know?
Yeah, so I get in the car and I look down and there's a $20 bill sitting in the floorboard of my car.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, how did that get there?
Grace?
I don't remember losing $20. I was broke, Cade. You remember losing $20 when you're broke.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You start digging through pockets.
Yeah.
Anywhere you can.
I don't remember losing it, but it was there. So I go to the BP around the corner from his house. I put the $20 in the tank. At that time, $20 was almost a tank. And he called me the next morning with where to be. And I went down there for a week, mixed the whole album for $1,000, met Lecrae, met Ben Washer, the owner of the label. They called me Angel Boy.
Okay.
Because I came in the clutch and saved the day. That's what they thought at the time. I'd never mixed in that room before. I'd only ever mixed on smaller speakers in smaller situations. That was a professionally tuned, top-notch, state-of-the-art room. My mixes were garbage.
Oh.
They were garbage. All of them got rejected. They paid me $500. Instead of $1,000. So I had a choice in that moment. And Street told me, he's like, so we can get you $500 for all the editing and the work that you did.
Okay.
But I could push for him and make him give you $1,000. But they're probably never going to ask you to do anything else again if we do.
The sacrifice and choice you had to make.
Whatever you think is best, bro, I'll do it. I was broke, you know? So I took the $500. I got a call a week later to come back and work on the album. And I said, okay, cool. I'll do it. Whenever you guys want me to, I'll do it. So fast forward from March/April-ish of the Church Clothes thing to Memorial Day weekend. They'd rented out Music House Studios in Sandy Springs. And we moved into Music House for 3 days and banged out the whole album.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I was a part of it. And it was because I just trusted the process. I was humble. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. It was not because of the skills, because I wasn't good enough to make it on the project, you know? And it's crazy because I had already done the Taylor Swift album and I could have argued with him. Like, man, I did such and such. Bottom line is I wasn't good enough that day.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But I was humble, even though I didn't want to be. I was pissed off. I didn't show it. I took it on the chin, and it turned into working on the Gravity album, which then went on that fall to win a Grammy. It beat out Israel Houghton, I think Micah Stampley, bunch of people that were like, you know, legendary gospel people.
Wow.
And he's the first rapper to ever win Best Gospel Album.
Yeah, that's insane to be able to break through. That's a crossing over area right there.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, the learning process, man, for myself, learning how to humble myself and see through, learning that, you know, sometimes the quick win is not the best solution, you know?
Okay.
You know, running the marathon. And
oh, yeah.
learning that lesson and getting that victory. I could have pushed for that 1,000 right then, and that would have been like 2 months of rent, but I didn't. And that decision of not pushing for that 1,000 turned into, humbly as possible, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
From that one project.
Because you made the choice right then and there, because that could have stalled your career for 5-10 years off of that one thing. And then
you fast forward 10 years to having the best business partner I could have ever asked for, and a great friend. Yeah, I mean, so it's just kind of, turned into something way bigger than I thought it would have.
And that's the biggest thing for any person, is be willing to be humbled, be willing to accept someone else's criticisms. They're not because they're trying to teach you something. It may not seem that way, but down the road you may see it and be like, oh, okay, I can take something from that. I can be able to grow from it and become something better.
Yep.
Now, when you're talking about equipment and you're getting into rooms, like what kind of setup and equipment do you like to use? Yeah,
so for years, man, I was an earbuds or laptop guy. I had records go to radio that I mixed on Apple earbuds.
Oh, wow.
People never knew it.
Holy moly.
But for me, I like smaller rooms. I don't like subs. That's just me. I don't like a whole lot of outboard gear. If I do have any outboard analog gear that I run stuff through, I try to stick with Neve stuff. The Neve sound became famous for Michael Jackson's stuff.
Okay.
So the deep punch and the high shimmer of Michael Jackson's projects, that's Neve stuff. So for me, that's kind of how I like things to sound: big, wide open, airy. So I kind of keep my process really simple. I'm in the box or digital as much as possible, and then I finish in an analog format so I can just make things wider and fatter. I don't have a lot of crazy speakers that I'm going back and forth with. I don't do a lot of car testing. I spend time in my rooms. I learn music in my rooms. I listen to a bunch of different things before I start working in anything in my rooms, and kind of get comfortable with how the room sounds and how it responds to different things that I know how those things sound. And then I just go from there.
Nice. That's smart.
Yeah.
So you're saying, okay, you got your earbuds, and is that your
same way that you remember me listening to earbuds walking through the hall?
Oh, yeah.
Same thing, man. Is just, my theory is most people listen to music in headphones today.
That is very true. Yep.
So how does it sound in headphones? And if it sounds good in headphones, it'll sound good anywhere else. Now, there's a lot of people that will tell you that that's a flat out lie. I don't care.
It's the way you mix. It's your style, your thing.
And I have a lot of friends that are engineers that they literally say, they'll be talking about me and they'll be like, somebody will be like, that doesn't make any sense. And the response will be, that's Jeremiah. It doesn't have to make sense.
It doesn't have to.
It sounds good. And that's kind of me, is like, it doesn't have to make sense. It sounds good. Right. If the goal is to make it sound good. So if it sounds good, who cares? Yeah.
Cause you could go to any different producer and you don't want the one that you could get the same every single place you go. You're looking for, what am I looking for? My sound, what I need. Does Jeremiah have that sound for me? Yeah. Or is it going to be somewhere else?
Right. Well, you're a musician. So as a musician and growing up in the traditional format, right, where you learned classical music, right?
Yeah.
So there are musicians that you played saxophone, correct?
Yes, I did. So and I moved on and played bass.
Yeah. Okay, great. So saxophone and bass. So there are musicians that played saxophone and flute and clarinet and cello and all those different, classical instruments, could not tell you how to use their instrument if they don't have a piece of sheet music in front of them. And then there are other people that can hear what's going on and know their instrument well enough to know how it's going to respond when they do whatever they do, and find a way to fit into what's going on.
That ear, that's
gift me, to it. Right? I don't care about what the paper says it should say. I don't care about how it's supposed to sound. It sounds good. Like, that's literally my argument.
Hey, no, that's the best way to explain it. It literally is.
Well, what are your LUFS meters? Or are you at -16 or are you at such and such? I'm like, I'm at negative great. That's where I'm at. Like,
oh, I love that. Negative great.
Yeah, like, not being funny, but like, you did all this stuff and you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and you checked your mix 50 times in 50 different places and you played yours and then you played mine. Who are people going to choose?
It's true.
So who cares about gear?
Yeah.
Right? Because I literally mixed records that went to radio with earbuds.
That's amazing.
Every record I've ever mixed went to iTunes with the lossless tag. And I could not tell you what iTunes or Apple Music's
their algorithms and stuff.
Yeah, what their standard is, what they say it has to be at in order to meet whatever. I don't know. I'm never gonna know. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, it works.
Somebody told me the other day it was -16, but it used to be -12, and I'm like, I've never known Like, I don't have a single plugin that tells me what that is. It sounds good. So then I send it, and then they like it, and then they put it out, and then I get the Apple Music lossless tag.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
awesome.
So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
No,
I don't
it totally
know.
does. Because everybody's process and stuff is different. Like, and everything there. Now, like, how do you keep up with those changes? Because there's like software constantly changes, the music things, as you said, with just in general, what people are looking for, the music trends are changing all around us daily. Mm-hmm. How do you keep up?
I don't. And not to sound like a rebel, it's just, I know what I'm good at and I know what I have the energy for. So I focus on the thing that I'm good at, right? Sports terms. I'm a shooter. I'm not a drive to the basket guy. And this is not real life. In real life, I'm not a shooter. But just in this in this scenario, we're putting it here in the comparisons. Right? I'm Robert Horry, right? I'm a shooter in the fourth quarter when you need a bucket. Don't put me in to start the game. Don't expect me to get you 30. Expect me to do the one thing that I'm really good at that has won 7 championships.
Yeah.
Those other things, you need other guys for that, right? If you come to me with a Screamo album and you want me to do such and such, I'm not your guy. If you come to me and say, I want that Bryson Tiller, no, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
Right? If you come to me and you want your record to sound great and clear, and some people say, like, if you remember Breaking Bad.
Yes.
Heisenberg.
Yes.
People say, oh, his stuff looked like glass. People
Very
say,
clean, crisp.
Yeah. People say, when your mixes sound like glass, they sound clean, clear, transparent, big, open, airy. That's me. If you want your stuff to sound like that, I got you. But another misconception about engineers is that we should be able to be all things to all people. I learned a long time ago that I couldn't be all things to all people. And if I tried to be all things to all people, I was going to lose myself.
Yeah.
So I focused on what I was good at and what I felt like made me special. And what makes me special is how stuff sounds when I do it. So that's why I meet with people before I work with them.
Yeah. That
I want to make sure that they like how I make things sound before I work with them. So I don't keep up, but to be honest, man, I don't keep up because I just love spending time with my family more than I love keeping up with the trends.
And that's the key thing right there, man. Family makes the world go around. If you're happy, you can be able to make the world happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you're going in this career, you're talking to your 16-year-old self, you're going into a college classroom. What are you going to tell somebody if they're wanting to get into this career? What are you going to tell them?
Be tired. Be prepared to be tired. Learn to be the best version of yourself with an hour and a half of sleep. Only build relationships that are interested in building you.
Ooh.
Don't spend a single second on anyone or anything once you realize that it's not mutually beneficial. With that, walk into every room and ask yourself, how can I make this room better?
Nice.
Never ask yourself, what can these people do for me? If you walk into every room that you walk into, especially in our industry, but I believe this in life as well, asking how you can be of service to them, people that want to be of service to you will gravitate.
Oh, yeah,
and then
that's
you'll wake
true.
up one day and you'll realize that whatever it is that you actually wanted from your life is there. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's beautiful.
I thought I wanted to win a bunch of Grammys. I thought I wanted to be the engineer with the most Grammys in the history of the world ever. That's what I told myself. The reality is I wanted to have a family that I had the luxury to spend time with, and music was a flexible enough career to give me the luxury to be with them whenever I wanted to be.
So that's beautiful.
I didn't know that, right?
It showed you over time.
Right. When I switched my mindset to every time I meet with somebody, every time I talk to somebody, I want to make sure that they're better when they leave. I started building friendships with people that did the same for me. Right?
Yeah.
I started building relationships with people that didn't mind telling me, hey, man, you need to chill. Hey, man, you're doing too much. What are you doing? You haven't been home. You need to go home. You need to such and such. No, we don't need to work at 2 a.m. You need to be with your wife. You need to go do such and such.
Amen.
Like, I had people in my life pouring into me, checking me, but that came from me making sure that I could also be of value to them. And then they started to appreciate that and started to do that as well. And then I saw a lot of people that were just there with their hand out fall to the side. So the things that I say to people and that I will continue to say to people, if I walk into a lecture, when I'm sitting on stage at a panel talking to people, they say, how do I make it? Or what should I do? I'm just getting started. Has nothing to do with your career and everything to do with you as a person. Stay humble, be prepared to be tired, Learn how to be the best version of yourself, regardless of the room you're in or how tired you are. Walk into every room asking what you can do to add value to the people in that room. And then every moment when you realize that somebody is no longer adding value to you and all they're doing is taking, cut them off and don't look back.
That's like this in the podcast. We're done. That's nothing further forward. That's it. But no, anything. I don't even know if this is a good question now. Is there anything else you want to add that you want to say to my audience that we didn't either cover throughout their career, or just any humbling more life advice?
I think if there's anything else I would say, I think that the concept of learning from friends is an amazing communal idea. We always say, and we've always heard, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes, it does.
At what point are we no longer children? At what point are we no longer learning? At what point do we no longer need our village? Right?
That's true.
And so I believe that it doesn't take a village to raise a child. It takes a village, period. It takes a village to make it through life. It takes a village to become the best version of yourself. It takes a village to fulfill your purpose and to become the person that what I believe God wants you to be. But if you don't believe in God, that's fine, right? Just the person that you feel like you're supposed to be in life, the best version of yourself. It takes a village for that throughout life. So I think, I commend you for this idea. I love it. I love the learning with friends concept, or learning from friends. I love how we grow through conversation of people in different aspects of life. I'm a music engineer. I've made music for a living, aside from a couple of odd jobs here and there. And, when I was younger,
we all got our side hustles, man. We got little things we fall into.
And, I was a pharmacy tech and hopefully I didn't kill anybody, serving burgers at Wendy's. Aside from things like that, I've made music my whole life.
Yeah.
But I feel like along that journey, I've learned some things about life, and hopefully people that listen will have gotten something from this conversation.
Oh, I believe they've got tons of, there's hundreds of gems in this conversation that we've had.
I hope so. I hope that people listen are able to take one thing with them that makes them a better person tomorrow than they were yesterday.
Oh, that's always my motto in life, is leave the world a better place than when I found it.
Yeah.
And that's such powerful words to it. Now, officially, before we leave out here, if someone wanted to find you, social media, learn more about you, how can we be able to reach out?
So Facebook, Jeremiah Adkins. Instagram, it's the most pretentious Instagram handle you'll ever hear, at TheMixGuru.
Yep.
My wife gave that name to me, not because she felt like I was this guru or teacher, but because she felt like it was marketable.
Hey, you got to sell yourself, man. It's true.
Yeah. So that's that. I'm not famous. I never will be. If you hear this and you want to connect or reach out, let's connect. Let's reach out. Let's be friends, and let's help each other be better.
That's the way it is. That's the way the world needs to be. We can learn from each other and grow from each other. Thank you, Jeremiah, for your time. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure to spend this time with you. And I hope this opens up our door again, because we haven't spoken. I think this is the first time we've seen each other in close to, I'm going to say 15 years.
Yeah.
Like easily. And that's one thing with relationships. You never know when something's going to open back up. And that's always my challenge to my listeners of ask questions, reach out to people you may have never met before, or maybe strike up a new conversation with past loved ones that maybe had lost at some point in time. You never know where people come on in their lives. We all change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Yeah. But thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
As we leave out today, if you want to reach out to me, I am on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. You can search Learning from Friends podcast. Be able to find me that way. If you want to email me to be able to reach out that way, it's cade, which is spelled CADE, at learningfromfriends.com. Most of all, as we leave today, don't forget to let your curiosity fly high. This is Cade Curtis from Learning from Friends. Have a wonderful day.